Well, I'm excited that you're here this morning. You know, our staff, we have this great creative team, and we got together and we work on all these sermon series that we do. And we started noticing the way the year was falling, with Easter falling a little bit later in the year, that we were going to have what we call standalone Sundays. Normally, the creative team is working together and we're putting together all these messages and everything, whether it's a 4-part series or a 6-part series, and sometimes as much as 8 weeks that we'll do in a row. And so we knew we had some things coming. You already heard next Sunday is Mother's Day. Dads, please remember that, please, so my counseling load does not increase. So next Sunday is Mother's Day. Then the week after, the 15th now, that's going to be our student recognition service. So, you know, we've got something special on those 2 Sundays, and then you have one in between it. Then you're at Memorial Day weekend, and summer kind of officially kicks off in our mind. And, you know, we do the thing where on Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July, and then back on Labor Day weekend, we just do one service. And so we always work on our series and everything. So we had a couple of weeks, and they just said, you know, Ike, why don't you just figure out what you want to do? And so that's why last week we talked about legacy, and it was really cool. In here at 4 o'clock last Sunday, we had over 100 people that came in. And I had several people even today say, thank you so much for the conference that we had. And so it was very informative, really helped people out. That's what we want to be able to do as a church. We want to be a resource. We want to be able to help you, and especially around your legacy. Now, we talked about financial legacy last week and some of those kinds of things, and just an overall legacy. And today, I want to go a little more individualized. I want to talk about your legacy. I want to talk about what you want God, doing in your life, because we've finished a series on what on earth am I here for? And what we talked about, what is God's purpose for our life? Why are we here? Why are we doing the things that we do in this world? And so I want to start out today by taking you over to the book of Psalms chapter 37 is where I'm going to be. It's one of my favorite passages in the Old Testament, and my very favorite verse is Psalms 37:4. So listen to what the psalmist wrote and think about your own life. And this is kind of a kickback Sunday. That's why I'm sitting at a table and chairs, just so I can kind of talk to you. And let me tell you, if you're in any kind of a business position where you're having to teach and you're having to help lead from a leadership perspective, then you need to find something to write on today. Those of you at home, certainly there as well. Or if you have notes like on an iPad or on your iPhone, I don't know what Android does in that way, but a place where you can take notes, because I'm going to share with you just some great information today. And let me tell you, there's not information I've come up with on my own. I have great resources, thank God. And so I'm going to share some of that with you today. But first, I want to start out in Psalms chapter 37 of the Older Testament. Do not fret, God says, because of evildoers. Do you ever sometimes look around at the world and it seems like the bad guys are winning? And you look around and you see all the atrocities that are going on, all the terrible things that are happening. You know, what's happening in the Ukraine is just so heartbreaking on so many fronts. And you look at the things that social justice is trying to address that are that's in our world today. And there's a lot of evil that's there. And what can happen to us, because we tend to be information junkies at times, is that we think everything is bad in the world. And we start thinking, well, somehow the evildoers are, they're somehow ahead of everybody else that's trying to do the right thing. And I want you to know tonight that this morning, that there's a lot of people that are out there that are trying to do the right things. And so God is going to challenge us in this passage. And as you make notes on it, just notice the things he tells you not to do. And then he gives you a series of things that he says, this is what you need to do. And then I'm going to be giving you some other side information. So do not fret because of those evildoers, and do not be envious toward wrongdoers. Do you ever sometimes look around and it seems like the people who don't give, who are not generous, it seems like they're getting new stuff and they're going places and they're Instagramming their lives away, you know, showing you all the great places they've been, all the things that they're doing. And you start thinking, well, man, here I am, you know, I'm committed in my giving. You know, I support my church. Maybe I support some other organizations that are worthy of my support. And you start looking around and it looks like the evildoers and it looks like the wrongdoers are getting ahead. But God comes back in verse number 2 and he says, but here's what I want you to know about them. They're going to wither quickly like the grass. They're going to wither. They're going to dry up. They're going to die. They're going to fade like the green herb. So he's saying, what I want you to do is get your perspective off of the evildoers, get your perspective off of the wrongdoers. I want to give you, you know, an attitude adjustment here and help you to understand what you do need to be doing in a world that's filled with good and evil. It's a world of dichotomy. There's light and there's dark. And so we want the light to prevail. And Jesus called us, you know, to be the salt and to be the light. We got to be something, salt, before we can do something, provide light. And so then he tells us what we need to do. Number one, we need to trust in the Lord. We need to trust in the Lord. When we're looking around us and it's looking like the world is out of control, we need to trust the Lord, you know, on a global perspective, that God has things under control. But we also need to trust the Lord in our own personal life. And the way that you and I increase our trust is by looking back at what God has done for us. You know, it's the existentialist philosopher Kierkegaard who said, you live life going forward, but you only understand it when you turn around and you look backward. And you see all the things that God has done in your life. To me, the way I build my trust is I look backward. Now I see that God has never forsaken me. God has never failed me. He's come through in absolutely every situation that I've ever been in. And that's why I think it's so good for us to share our personal story with other people about our spiritual relationship. When I leave here today, and I'm going to be leaving quickly, I'm going to be going and interviewing someone that is running you know, for one of the national seats and to be a senator. And I've been asked to come in and just particularly, we want you to interview and we want you to talk about the spiritual aspect of this person's life. You know, why are they running from this spiritual perspective? And I'm honored to get to do things like that. But in my own personal life, I can tell you, every time I tell my salvation story, it makes my confidence even stronger in my story. There's something about looking back that will cause you to trust the Lord. So he says, I want you to look back and I want you to trust the Lord. And then he says, in the moment, I want you to do good. I want you to do good. Y'all, there's such a power in doing good. People will argue with you about, you know, doctrine. They'll argue with you about social issues. But when you are just kind to people, when you make kindness a hallmark of who you're going to be, and you make sure that in all of your different interactions that you have with people, that you're being kind to them, what a difference it makes just to be kind to people, you know, to acknowledge what they do. I walked into a restaurant on Thursday, I think it was, to meet a couple of buddies of mine, and I looked over and here was the Smyrna Police Department, a good number of them, and folks from their information department. They were all having lunch. And so, you know, I got my waiter and I said, hey, I want to pick up the tab for those people over there. I didn't know anyone in that group. At least I didn't think that I did. And so, I picked up their tab, and then they started coming over. And one of the ladies said, Ike, I recognized you. And, man, that was nice of you to do that. And by the way, you did that, Piedmont Church, for them. It wasn't just me by any stretch of the imagination. But, they started coming over. And they started coming by and said, that was just so thoughtful. Do good to people. If you see someone wearing a military uniform, pick up their lunch, pick up their dinner for them. I mean, they're serving our country. What a much better world it would be if kindness just ruled everyone's heart. And that's why he says here, I want you to trust in the Lord. I want you to look back. I want you to do good right now. And then look at the next part. I want you to dwell in the land. You know what he's saying right there? I want you to dwell wherever I've placed you. I want you to bloom right where I planted you. Don't always be waiting, I'll get involved in my community when we move to this place or we move to that place. He's saying, dwell in the land. Live in the place where you're living. Don't just exist there. Really live in that land. Dwell in the land. And then this is the next great part. Cultivate faithfulness. Be faithful. Can I thank y'all for just a minute for your faithfulness? Can I thank you for the way that you give and you support this church? And, as we're seeing numbers come back, we're thankful for that. We don't talk a lot about numbers here, but like on, Easter Sunday, there are around 2,200 people that were a part of what we did on Easter weekend, which is pretty amazing. The last 2 years, we've set records in our generosity of what we've been able to be blessed with. We gave away over $300,000 in our community this past year to help support other charities and things that are making our world a better place. See, I want this church to be known for how much we give rather than how much we ask for. And you help us to be able to do that. And to me, that's us cultivating faithfulness. And it teaches us in the scripture that when our community does well, we do well. And that's why it's so important that we do those kinds of things and we reach out and we make the impact that we're making. And man, thank God for Marlon Longacre, for Angie Bolton, and the work they do. I'm not sure if Marlon's in here right now. I'm looking around. But yesterday was his birthday, and yesterday his son graduated from college. So let's give him some encouragement along with Libby. That's a great day. And we're just so proud of them. And, just a wonderful, wonderful family. So delight yourself then in the Lord, he says. Now, this is my favorite verse right here. Delight yourself in the Lord, because there's something great that's going to happen. You know how you delight yourself in the Lord? You love the things the Lord loves. That's how you delight yourself in the Lord. It's kind of like, you want to know one of our keys to community here at Piedmont? We know this. If we love on what our community loves, our community in turn is going to love us. And that's why we love on children so much. And that's why we love on students so much. Because we know that if we love on them, then our community is going to love us. And some of them that may not have a spiritual bent in their lives, because we do ministry with no strings attached, some of those people are going to end up coming to church here. Some of them are going to end up coming to know Christ because of what we're doing. What we've tried to do is we've tried to dwell in this land. We've tried to cultivate faithfulness. And when we delight ourselves in the Lord, here's the payoff. It says, a promise from God, He will give you the desires of your heart. You know how we've talked before, when there's a promise, there's a premise, that you get a promise from God, but there's a premise. In other words, God says, here's the premise. If you do this, then I'll do that. Here you see it perfectly framed up for you. Because if we delight ourselves in the Lord, that's the premise. Delight yourselves in me, here's the promise. I'm going to give you the desires of your heart. I'm going to give you the desires of your heart. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to make that difference in your life. And then he says, commit your way to the Lord. You get all of these things lined up and you say, this is the way I'm going to live my life. This is the person that I'm going to be. Trust also in him and he will do it. There's a great difference when you think about faith. There's two ways you can look at faith. You can look at it from God's perspective, or you can look at it from the human perspective. And when faith is really your reaction to God's ability. That's really what faith is. And you know, if there is faith in the future, then there's going to be hope in the present to help you do what you need to do. So you got trust when you look backward. You got hope for right now, and then you got faith in the future. And my mentor Zig always said that faith is your reaction to God's ability, not to your own. Self-confidence is your reaction to your own ability, and maybe in a self-confident way, you have faith in the future. You feel like tomorrow's going to be better. You feel like, you know, I'm going to be able to accomplish things. I'm going to be able to make my mark in this world. And that legacy that you're shooting to be able to establish and to be able to pass on to your kids and to pass on to your grandkids. I'm curious, how many of you in here are grandchildren? Let me see hands. Aren't you glad you didn't kill your kids? Aren't those grandkids just really awesome and everything? You want to be able to pass that legacy on to them. So when we commit our way to the Lord, we trust in him, and then he's going to do it. He's going to give you the power. You say, where am I going to get that power? The same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead is the same power that lives within your mortal bodies, and it's the same power that gives you the ability to be able to choose and to live the life that God wants you to live, and not get caught up in unforgiveness, and not get caught up in bitterness, and not get caught up in anger, and not get caught up in retaliation, or get caught up in jealousy, get caught up in envy, all of those things that will just eat away at you. And those things will just destroy you from the inside out. And you may look beautiful on the outside. You may be the picture of perfection, and you could be on the cover of a magazine. But if you are rotten to the core on the inside, it's going to work its way to the surface. There is no question about it. That's why I say there's some people, I don't think they die. I think they just nasty away. And eventually, they're just not there. They just leave a greasy spot somewhere. That's not who you want to be. That's not who I want to be. I want to trust in God, and I want to believe he's going to give me the ability to be able to do it. He will bring forth your righteousness as light and your judgment as the noonday. He's saying you'll be able to stand right in the middle of the day, and people will look and know that you have righteousness. You see, righteousness is what you receive when you make the great exchange and you accept Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior. That's why we call it the Great Exchange around here at Piedmont. And you'll see people in the baptistry. Great Exchange. It means it in a couple of different ways. The first great exchange is this: I exchange my sinfulness for God's righteousness. I exchange my sinfulness for the righteousness of God. And that's why he says he's going to bring forth your righteousness as the light. It's going to be evident to everyone around you, and your judgment is going to be like at the noonday. And the good thing about your judgment, the good thing about my judgment, is that we're not going to be judged for our sins. That's Romans chapter 8, verse 1. Now, therefore, there is no condemnation to those that are in Christ Jesus. Those things are gone. Now, you and I have the opportunity to be able to make an impact and to be able to do some incredible things in our lives. Now, the introduction is over. Let me get to where I really want you to go today. Are you ready? Proverbs 22:1. If you're someone that makes notes, write this one down. A good name is to be desired more than great wealth, and favor is better than silver and gold. Proverbs 22:1. Two people that I admire greatly. One of them has gone on to be with the Lord. This was always his verse. Truett Cathy, founder of Chick-fil-A. That was his verse right there. Proverbs 22:1. I remember sitting in this very building, and Truett Cathy was on this stage, and I was sitting right over here in this section, and he quoted that verse. He was here doing a baccalaureate for Cal High School, and he quoted Proverbs 22:1. It's also the favorite verse for Jenny Pruitt. Jenny Pruitt owned for years, Jenny Pruitt Fine Homes, and then she sold it to this guy named Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, and so Warren Buffett bought her company, and now she owns Sotheby's Fine Homes. And Jenny Pruitt is a godly lady, an amazing warrior for the Lord, and has been a dear friend for a lot of years. That's her favorite verse. I just thought about people that embrace that verse in their life, and they live it that way. So how do those people begin to live the way that they live? Do you know what I found out about a lot of these people? It's not that they always have answers. It's sometimes they ask great questions. So I was fortunate enough years ago that I'm on the phone one day with Zig Ziglar, and we're talking, and he said, Ike, there's this guy in California I want you to meet. You guys remind me a lot of each other and want y'all to talk. And so he gave me a number, and I called, and I told the administrative assistant, I said, he doesn't know me. Zig Ziglar told us to get together. And he was telling me to call this guy named John Maxwell. And John Maxwell at the time was still running tapes in his garage. And we got to know each other. And it's been this great friendship. And when I talk about people who've really impacted me from a learning perspective, I always talk about Dr. Gene Hendricks at Mercy University. I talk about Zig Ziglar and what he did for me in playing a father role to me spiritually in so many different ways. And then John Maxwell, unbelievable what I've learned from John. And so one of the benefits of getting to be a friend of John is sometimes he'll just send out a text to you. And right at the end of last year, he sent out this text. And I shared this at the Marietta Business Association recently. Now watch people taking all of these notes. And he shared what he called 4 look-back questions, 4 questions about looking back at the year, 1 question about right now, and then 4 forward questions. And they're real short. I'm just going to pop them at you and then give you some other information here. There was the backward questions. There were 4 of them. 1, what made me proud? I had a gentleman leave the last service, and he came and he found me, and he said, man, I want to thank you. He said, I've got some presentations I've got to make, and he said, I'm going to be able to use what you gave me here on Sunday to be able to make that presentation out in the corporate world and to be able to quote a John Maxwell. These are his questions, not mine. Number 1, when I look back, what made me proud? Number 2, when I look back on the year, what did I learn? What were the things that I learned the most? You know what I've learned really over the last 2 years? How incredibly generous people are. How amazingly resilient some people can be, but how terribly broken many other people are. And the pandemic just about took them under. I learned those 3 things. I learned about this church that your generosity is staggering. I learned that this church didn't care if the Great Hall looked like the Great Hall or the Great Hall looked like a food warehouse, because that's what it looked like for nearly a year. And 800 families, 800 people, I should say were getting fed through what this church was doing. Man, I learned a lot. Who did I lead last year? Who did I lead? You know, who's the person that you're leading? There's people who spend a lot of time, leading organizations. I look out here at Tony Brown. I'll embarrass him. He's a great Sunday school teacher, amazing leader. He and his wife Sharon, just incredible people. And Tony, you retired after 20-something years as the artistic director. Am I saying the title close? No. Actor director of the Shakespeare Tavern Theater. And how many years altogether? 29? Wow, I think that deserves a nice round of applause, don't you? I mean, you were leading people. You're a great leader. And who did you lead last year? First place you start is your family. What did I do with my kids last year? You know, did I take them out to lunch and sit down with them and, just really say, hey, what's going on? Hey, summer's coming up. Lord, y'all, I'm going to run late on y'all. Summer's coming up. And in the summer, what I used to do with my girls, we used to always go to Hawaii for vacation. It was our place to go. I flew all over the country, so I always had frequent flyer miles. And one of my best friends was named Brian Giat, and he was a manager for Westin Hotels. And so he'd always get me my, hotel rooms. We could go cheaper to Maui than we could to Florida. And so we would do that. And so, it's a long flight, like 9 hours plus. And so I'd always break up the trip. We'd stop in Los Angeles, change planes, and then we'd get on to go the second half. So the first half of the trip, I would have one daughter with me. And the second leg of the trip, I would have the other daughter with me. And we would work on goals. And I would say, what do you want to do this next year? What do you want to be involved in? Where do you want to go? Is there some play that you want to go to? Is there something coming to town? Do you want to be involved in cheerleading? Do you want to be involved in athletics? What do you want to do? And literally, we would sit there for hours and just talk. Lead your family. Let your kids know you love them. Let your kids know you want to do the best for them. Then this question, what held me back? What was the biggest thing that held you back this past year? The now question. Do I still love what I do? See, we've just gone through the Great Resignation. We read about it everywhere. The Great Resignation. The work world has changed. The Great Resignation. Some people are saying the next phase is the Great Regret. What in God's name did I do? You know why there's so many people resigning? Because they were looking at life and they were realizing how fragile life is, and they were seeing so many people die from COVID, and they're going, man, do I really want to be stuck in a job that I'm miserable going to? Do you still love what you do? Would you do what you do even if you didn't get paid for it? Would you still do what you're doing? Now, here's the forward questions. Am I willing to pay the price again this year? Everybody in sales can tell you this. What you did last year doesn't matter jack for this year. You got to start all over. You got to get on the treadmill every time that, whether you have a fiscal year that ends at the end of, June, or whether your year starts on January the 1st, you have to get back on that treadmill. Are you willing to pay the price again this year? Because here's the deal with success. You pay up front and in advance. You have to pay up front and in advance. And sometimes, you can get tired. Sometimes it can kind of get to you. What's most important right now? What's the one thing that you would say, this is the most important thing for me to do, and this is the most important thing for me to solve? What would those two things be in your life? And if you solved what you're up against, how much stress would it take out of your life? And remember, hope is not a strategy. You need a strategy about what you're going to do. Number 8, what do I need to change? What do I need to change right now in my life? And then number 9, what is my word for the year? My word, W-O-R-D. What is my word for the year? Now, I'd already chosen my word when I'd gotten this from John because it was the thing to do. Everybody, what is your word for this next year? So I have a fear of FOMO, fear of missing out. So I had to have my word. My word was mindfulness. God, let me please be where I am in the moment. Instead of being in one place and thinking about other things, like last night, we had our Musk Gala. It is so hard for me to be in that moment because I'm sitting there. I know I've got to go on platform. I know I've got to say certain things. I know there's things I need to do. There's people I need to go meet. And it's just back and forth. And this may surprise you. I am not good in small groups like that. I am great doing this. I love this. Nowhere I'm more at home than sitting right here doing what I'm doing right now. Love this. But man, when I got a bunch of people coming up and I'm trying to meet everybody and I'm trying to remember names and everything, I freak out. And then to add to the situation, Robin wasn't there because she's had surgery and she's on one of those kneelers and everything. So, you know, she can't do anything for like 6 weeks. And so I don't have Robin there. And you say, why did you need Robin? Because Robin has a magical gift. She will slap me into line in a heartbeat. You think Will Smith stuff? Meet my Robin, man. I mean, and she does it verbally to me. Here's what she will say to me. She sees when my brain is disengaging. She sees the glaze come across my eyes, and she will say this phrase, "You are iking out. Stop it." And man, I come back to earth. And I go, whoa, man, that was close. I'm iking out. So, you know, I need to be listening to what I'm doing and where I'm going here. Listen, it makes all the difference in the world. So, I've got so much more. I may pour this on y'all on Mother's Day. But ladies are going, you better not. You better tell my husband how nice to be. And I agree with that, ladies. So when I do businesses, I'll talk about something I call Dream Squared. I don't do a lot of acrostics, you know, because people start making up their own words to go in those slots. But I take the word dream and I say, if you squared it, you know, 2 words for each letter. This is how you make your dreams come true. Dedication and discipline. Are you dedicated to what you're doing? And then when you have the discipline to continue it, once the emotion of the decision is passed. See, that's where so many people fail. See, they have an aspiration, but they want to turn it into an accomplishment. But you got all this gap in between. Like where you are. And man, when you have an aspiration, you're fired up, you're excited. It's like, oh man, this is it. This is what I want to get done. And you can see, boy, here's what the end result's going to be. And it's wonderful. But there's this huge word in between called execution. You got to execute. And execution comes down to dedication and discipline. Will I dedicate myself to something, and then will I have the discipline to stick with it? Hey, listen, this is the pot calling the kettle black, okay? Back in December, I was Christmas shopping. Robin wasn't with me. Shiny objects grabbed my attention. I walked by a Peloton store. Oh, yeah. I saw the shiny bike. I saw the sales girl. The sales girl saw me, and she smiled and went. I walked in the store. Now, Abigail was with me, but she was no help whatsoever. And so I walked in the store, and she started telling me all the benefits. And she started telling me about how one of the rides you actually do in Hawaii. Oh, man, I could see myself on that bike. I'm not going to do a spin class, but I could see myself on that Peloton. Man, you got cleats you put on. That'd be like playing football again. Man, I could just see myself. I have a Peloton bike right now. I know I'm only 3 months into paying for it. You say, does it have low miles, Ike? No. It has no miles, Ike. You say you haven't even gotten on it? Yeah, I've got on it. And I sat there and I watched the video. That's it. Oh man, by the way, it's got a great screen. It'll even flip around so other people can see where you're riding. It's awesome. Sitting there in the corner of my office. Yep. Dedication and discipline. I'm here to talk to you about it. Responsibility and respect. That's the R in dream. Take responsibility. Respect other people and what they're trying to do. Understand your emergency is not other people's priority. And you take responsibility for your life. You take responsibility for calling and getting things done. You take responsibility for getting in touch with people who can help you to help make your dreams come true. The E, enthusiasm and engagement. 2 greatest things in the world you can have. When people say to me, what do you think is the single biggest difference between aspiration and accomplishment? I told you execution. But you know what the core of it is? Do you have a committed heart or do you have an uncommitted heart? It's true in marriage. It's true in your job. It's true in your church. Because here's what happens. You have an uncommitted heart, you're going to look for an escape. You have a committed heart, and you go, I'm in this to win it, and I'm in it, and I'm sticking here, and bless God, it said, till death do us part, and that's what we're going to do. When you do that, you look for solutions. Uncommitted heart, an escape. Committed heart, you look for solutions. Enthusiasm about what you're doing. Do you know the word enthusiasm is actually a theological word? It's entheos. It means a God in you excitement and engagement. Get involved in what you're doing. This next one's so important. Attitude and altitude. See, your attitude determines your altitude. And let me tell you why altitude is so important. Altitude gives you perspective. You don't want to get stuck looking on the level with the evildoers and the wrongdoers. You want to be in a perspective that's God's perspective, where He can lift you up and you can see and have the mind of Christ and be able to see the world in a totally different way. And your attitude about what you think about life. That's why you hear me quote Viktor Frankl so much. When he said the last human freedom that any of us have is our ability to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. This is a man that survived being in a concentration camp and watched everyone in his family die with the exception of one sister. And he says at the end of the day, the last human freedom you have, the last human freedom I have, is my ability to choose my attitude. No matter what that circumstance is, you get perspective. And then make your life have meaning, legacy, and let it be a masterpiece. You know, when you sign off on your life, the Bible tells us, hey, number your days, because we only have so many of them. Why would you waste them doing the same old thing that's not helping you, that's dragging you down? Why don't you commit to the Lord in this place today and go, hey, God, you know what? It's time to do better. It's time to be better. I just tried to share with you wisdom that I can take and I can use in a workplace. I can go speak for a company. I can go speak to the Bar Association here in Cobb and share with them like I did with the Marietta Business Association. Here's the things that I believe are true. And for me, every single one of these are grounded in God's holy word. That's my litmus test for what I'm going to believe in and what I'm going to commit to. Let's pray together. Father, I thank you for an amazing group of people being here today. I thank you for their attention. Lord, I thank you for their time because they're never going to get this hour back. Not to mention the time they spent getting ready, driving over here, getting in the car to go home, praying that they remember the preacher's words and don't kill each other. Lord, we don't get back our time, so we have to be careful how we invest it. What do we trade it off for? And God, here's what I know about living for you. You can do more for us in 5 minutes than we can try to work up in 5 years. If we delight ourselves in you, you will give us the desires of our heart. God, I love the premise because I just want to stand before you one day and you go, hey, well done, good and faithful servant. Well done. And I want you to experience the promise. Maybe today you don't have a spiritual relationship. Maybe you never accepted Jesus. What a great time for you to just say, you know, God, I acknowledge that you exist. I believe on the name of Jesus Christ, most famous name in the history of the world. And he never traveled more than 40 miles from home. Folks, Jesus is God incarnate. Just say, I believe on his name. I confess my sin. Now, Jesus, I confess you as my Lord. And say to him, come into my heart right now, Lord Jesus. I'm going to be down here in the front. Nate's going to be down here in the front. Maybe another staff member's going to be down here. If you want to come down and talk to one of us, we're here. But if you just want to come down and kneel and pray, and this morning there were so many people around the communion table, to just say, God, I'm giving you my life. God, help me to help my kids to have spiritual formation in life. God, help me with my grandkids. Hey, do you love your family enough to pray for them? This will be such a great time, because that is your legacy. It truly is. As you stand to your feet, Matt's going to lead us. I invite you to come right now.